Hi and welcome as we get together for our 48th community meeting together. That means we're almost a full-on year old. So congrats for getting us this far. Uh, I think we have a relatively lightweight agenda today, but Robert, can you just run through real quick what we have on the plate today?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Gonna get this up and running.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is a 1 hour weekly meeting. Other groups, working groups and such, will also be meeting separately. And you are obviously welcome to drop in on those meetings if you see something interesting to you. Our agenda today, we, as always, will start with some introductions and meeting anyone who is new here. And then we are going to run in on updates and announcements, including a physical meetup today, and then jumping into those working group updates. And we've got 5 of those. And then if you have anything else that we need to be inclusive of on this hour together, if you could put it in the meeting chat, that way we can make sure we catch it. And yes, we are going to likely miss Jesse for at least part of this. But our workshop from V1 last week, we are going to continue next week. And the Mira board, which was our resource, I will go ahead and drop in the meeting chat for those of you who couldn't be with us last week.
I forgot to add the GDC meetup here.
The GDC event, yes. So we are having a physical meeting today. But first, let's do intros and say hi to everybody here. It's good to see you. Do we have anyone who's first time here? I think, David, you may be the only first timer here today.
Okay.
But basically, if you want to just take 30 seconds or so and tell us about yourself and how you found your way to OMI and how your work touches on the work that we're doing here.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Can you hear me okay?
I do, yes.
Okay, great. So my name is David Trogue, and I'm an analyst at Forrester Research. And one of my main research topics as an analyst is extended reality and extended reality UX design in particular. And I've become especially interested in the issue of portaling between platforms, between worlds created by separate organizations. And I heard about this group while listening to Bai's Voices of VR podcast recently, and did some searching, found it, had a few communications with you, Evo, and also with Jesse Alton in the past couple of days. And Jesse suggested that I try joining the meeting to learn a little bit more. So we're
It's great to have you here, David. And so David's a researcher, but you're also an author, correct? You have a background in helping to do the communication of what is happening here to the rest of the world in some form.
Yeah, well, I mean, this part of Forrester's business and what Forrester analysts do is largely write research that's not custom research. It's research that our clients subscribe to. And so my job is to give them advice about, what to do specifically about experience design based on technologies. And the main two I focus on are extended reality and conversational AI. And recently we've been getting a lot of questions because of the whole Metaverse thing. A lot of clients saying, hey, what's the Metaverse thing? What should I do about it? So I've been giving them advice about that. And it seems to me one of the most important things for it to become a reality is what I was just mentioning a few minutes ago, that cross-world portaling, which I know, Evo, from the podcast, I discovered there's a word for that, meta-traversal. So I'm glad to see that. And I'd like to be able to do the right thing to help clients advance that as a possibility, because I really think it would be sad for there to be this fragmented world of siloed islands calling themselves, a plural version of Metaverse, which, in my opinion, is by definition not possible. Like saying there are multiple webs or multiple Metaverses. Anyway, I'm getting long-winded, so I'm...
You're perfect. You're perfect. Thank you for helping us contextualize. And for the rest of you, please feel free to reach out to David on your own time to have a deeper conversation about all of those topics and how they relate to how we communicate the work here more broadly. All right. Any other newbies? I think everyone else here has been here for quite some time, so welcome everybody. All right, we're going to do a little recap of last week. I'd love to hear from one or two of you who were there last week what your experience was. And if you could potentially recap for those who weren't here what you experienced on the Miro board and on that workshop together. Anyone want to jump in?
You might miss my stream for 1 second. I need to switch Wi-Fi networks real quick. It's on the wrong one.
I got you. No worries.
Right.
No worries. So for those of you who weren't here, we've been engaged in a strategic development process to include an inquiry about our roles and what we're holding on to and how to potentially better organize and work together. And so this has been a 2-stage inquiry. The first step was really exploring who we are as a community, what the roles are we're holding on to, what we really want to be doing, and what we want OMI as a community to be together. Obviously, we are holding on to lots of different issues. I have added some things on the right side of this board, including some things that I didn't hear that we do need to address in our organization structure, like who welcomes people from a week-to-week basis and the sort of basic community structure level conversations. But you can see some of the roles we're holding on to. The trial we're heading in right now is, sometimes we don't have enough maintainers. Sometimes we don't have enough people who are equipped to communicate a story well, and we need to develop a common strategy for how we do some of the demos and the cadence of that work. And then there's a broader publishing conversation that as we have a deeper conversation about what kind of organization we want to be, that includes, how do we want to create and publish together, and what do we want to put out in the world? How is that contributing to a broader experience of an open metaverse for all? And so that's, anyone else want to jump in and say what you experienced in that workshop from last week? I want to encourage you to just go into the Miro bar in your own time. What I've put on the right is more of the elements that might have been missing that we didn't have a conversation about. Obviously, there are conversations here about UX and design that we haven't had a chance to really go into deeply yet. And as we move forward, we're going to want to think about not just the sort of demo days or the potential communication structures and frameworks that we might publish together, but also sort of the regular demos and sandboxes and the events. Now that we can potentially be a community that is both virtual and physical, like as human beings as well, we get to design the kind of community that serves all of our needs and all of the roles and things that we're holding on to. So anyone else want to jump in on anything you heard or wanted to spotlight as we're carrying this over to next week for the second half, which is organizational and leadership structure, and then how these efforts between working groups and other organizational efforts need to be aligned? Y'all are quiet.
I think I got a better sense of where some of our gaps are as a community. I think I got a lot more feedback on what people want to be doing. And I think we're starting to realize that we can, if we want to, focus more on specific parts of our mission. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what do we want to hone in on? What do we want to expand to, and what structure we want to use to lead that going forward.
Totally agree. And as we go into our working group meetings now, and sorry, the updates, each of our working groups might have a different publishing structure and a different idea about what they want to put out into the world. The Avatar group, for example, has been interesting in terms of the ideas that are churning there on, easy on-ramps into VRM, for example, guides and resourcing, tooling. So there's a lot of interest in how we expand our capacities and the tooling we're providing to everyone across the industry. Cool. And I do think media goals, and we'll do a separate media strategy after we do the organizational development strategy, right? So OD down first, then we'll talk about engagement and how to really both bust out some of the publishing side, using our Git more effectively and improving our structures, both on the open source side and also separately. I wanted to mention on the open source side, I got an email from Open Collective. There is an opportunity if we want to sort of up level in terms of our technical writing capacities. There's a sort of grant program right now happening between Open Collective and Google open source tooling for technical writers. So if that's something we want to enable, that would open up some funding from Google and Open Collective to help us make our publishing effort more of an effort.
Add on to this, I'm part of a related program called Google Summer of Code in the Go engine, and this program of Google Summer of Docs, I think it's called that.
It is called that, correct?
It's the same idea, and it's they've been very good to the organization.
Yes, the Summer of Docs is the grant I'm talking about. We would have to apply by Friday if we want to open up that opportunity, but it would open up potentially funds from Open Collective and Google to do some of the writing and maintenance challenges. I'm sorry?
Do we need to vote on it?
We would need to vote on it, but we just need to we need to apply and make sure that we make that an effort that is done between here and Friday. If we see that there's enough interest in that and we have people who are interested in that, we can move forward.
Okay, I guess the first step is just agree that we want this, and then we can get the details working.
Just one thing on this.
Yeah.
This is money to go towards rewarding or hiring writers, technical writers.
It is skilling our technical writers and maintainers to make sure that we are providing the best OS repos across the board. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm super in support of all that. And I think that's kind of in line with some of the things that we've been talking about in this mirror board.
Yeah, we need more maintainers and writers who are well equipped to tackle these challenges. So it does meet our need. Okay, cool. It's something I can help move forward. I will post the link toward it, but we can just jump in from here on to website and other working groups. Thank y'all for the recap.
And if I were to address the vote for this, I don't think we need a vote for this. This isn't necessarily changing anything structurally, but if there are any objections to going after this grant, please speak up. Okay, next up we have the website update. I don't think the website update met yet. I think it's meeting this afternoon, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
What was the time again? I don't have it in UTC.
It is on the site. It's on. It's actually not on here. It's scheduled for next week, 3 to 5.
Next week. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I had a feeling.
Yeah, next week, 3 to 5. It's a 2-hour meeting, which makes sense. You typically do more like code development and stuff like that. This will be really good because I think going into the workshop next week, it'll be really important knowing what our capabilities are as far as filling out that content and like blog sort of side of things.
Yeah, I have a video. If y'all want to check back scroll in the OMI website room, I have a video of the current blog capabilities. Like, it is a flip of a switch to get what that video represents. So, whenever y'all are ready.
It's not
Oh yeah, cool.
my browser.
Aw.
I'll share that.
Hey, there we go.
Great.
So let's go to blog, and these are the posts. We can do smaller, like a grid, that this represents each post. You can scroll down and see more. You go inside of a post, you can have all this content, and then you have a comment system. We can turn that off, not a big deal. And then you can see tags and things like that. I've been tagging these as OMI blog. We could have different blogs, like a dev blog, things like that. So categories are built in. And yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. And thanks for getting that set up.
I'm really excited for that. I've been working on some longer Substack pieces, including a wrap up of the first 4 Metaverse events. And what I think I'd like to do is do short blog posts on our blog that then point back to these longer pieces. And I know some of you have other longer pieces too. So how we, sort of build an editorial content calendar for the blog, or, build up a team of a number of us who are all sort of reposting the blog posts we're already doing to our own sites, but also doing some specific work here around interoperability and how it fits together. So there's sort of a 2-stage. It would be great to, number one, see who our existing bloggers are. If you're a blogger who's publishing right now, just drop a link to your blog in the meeting chat so that we can see it. Because I think I've probably been to half of your websites, but I haven't seen all of your work. As a community, it would be great to see more of what we're all already putting out there together.
Yeah, and we can build an intake form that says something like, it could have a checkbox that says is time sensitive, puts those to the top so that we can
well, we have an Airtable for media right now, and that's certainly something we could revisit as a way to organize that.
Yeah,
too.
So we could have our maintainers of the blog to manage that content. But this is for the website team to discuss next week on how we can approve that content, because there needs to be a bit of an editorial flow between.
Got it. And I suspect editorial calendar and engagement strategy in terms of like writing planning is going to happen in April, just realistically.
Cool.
And then we have the OMI chain group. Any updates from anyone in here?
I went to that meeting. A couple of us went to that meeting, I think. There were 4 or 5 of us there. So there have been sort of 2 separate lines. There's been this R&D line around rigging and capacity expansion. And then there has been a separate conversation about creating a guide that encapsulates what Jin, what Lifted Pixel, and a few others have done in terms of how to get started in VRM, how to create your first avatar, how to make that avatar interoperable, sort of where to take the work. So they are in the early stages of thinking about how to coalesce those resources into a shared guide. Obviously, Jin's website right now has probably as much published as anywhere. And then Lifted Pixel has already published some of those. And so it's a synthesis of some of the different projects already happening. Jin is obviously working on another Avatar Interop meeting that's happening once a week that is more Web3 focused in R&D and in exploration around different worlds for Interop. And then what I saw in the last meeting was more of a conversation about the broader field and how do we make sure to support creators as a whole. So making sure that the OMI resources are how to get started, how to connect it, how to potentially rig and animate and move with those avatars effectively across worlds with as little friction as possible. How that gets published, I don't know yet. I have a website that I've offered up for that. That's vrm.world. That could be a common place for the OMI group to publish together. So again, publishing strategies will probably vary from working group to working group. This one is pretty new. And I don't think there's a clear sense of anything to be published beyond the guides themselves at this point.
For the update. Then we got the scripting group. I think it was just Nate and Adam this week. Nate, there's no big updates. It was just like a check-in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still in this like intermediate stage where we're kind of just trying to build out the basis of things that we need for our given platforms to build out the bigger experiments that we want to do. So we did an initial experiment in this area, but in order to like wire it up to everything, at least in our own platform, it's required some additional development work. So we're still maybe a week to 3 or 4 weeks out. So it could be a little bit before we see some real movement here, but still coming up on the horizon. And for those of you who haven't heard about this, we're using WebAssembly as a sandbox for interoperable, scriptable environments, objects, and avatars. We're trying to come up with a WebAssembly ABI, which is this interface for calling methods in WASM and having things exposed to a WASM context so that you can program in any WASM compatible language, such as C, C#, C++, Rust, assembly script, Ruby, Go, basically anything at this point. Like all the big ones have, all the big languages have written compilers that can compile down to WebAssembly. So you'll be able to use all of these different platforms for writing interoperable 3D scripted content. So yeah, just getting started there. And if you're interested, please join the group meeting.
When is the WASM group
again,
meeting?
That's on our calendar. It's Tuesdays at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and you can find it in your own time zone there. Next up, we have the GLTF group. The big news here is that we're meeting with Kronos today about the OMI audio extension and how we can work better with Microsoft's audio extension and hopefully come up with a unified extension that kind of takes both into account. So that'll be directly after this meeting. Other things that are going on, we've got, let me pull up the repository really quick. We've got a text extension. Some stuff that came up here was I noticed that we kind of have like three different opportunities for text extension. So like being able to print out debug text, 3D like geometry text, or using signed distance fields. And there's been some updates in the signed distance fields, particularly addressing this comment here. Basically, we want to be able to support many different languages. Well, there's been an update to the 3 Troika SDF font library, which allows you to better manage larger sets of characters, which is really good for things like Chinese, or I guess it would be the full Japanese character set as well. So yeah, really important work going on there and things to discuss in our next meeting. Audio emitter, I went into that a little bit. The physics stuff is going forward. We are waiting to split out these two different extensions. So we have the collider and physics body. We're going to focus on the colliders first, which will allow us to add collision meshes to static environments. And then hopefully we'll move on to the dynamic sort of physics side of things. And then we've got animation retargeting for avatars. Some important work going on here. Basically, there is a PR that has been merged into the Blender GLTF add-on. That will be in mainline Blender in the next version. I think that's 3.2. That allows you to save a GLTF with only animations, so no meshes, which allows us to author animations as an asset and then apply that onto another model. And our goal here is to create a standard that allows us to do that reliably across a larger set of avatars. And then at the end of the meeting, we talked about a possible visibility extension proposal. So GLTF has a way to control visibility, but it's literally setting the scale of an object to 0, which we noted was kind of an issue because this only allows you to, inside of a GLTF on its own, hide an object using animations. The first frame could be like invisible, and then you would have to animate it to create it visible, which seems like a kind of hacky way of doing things. So it would be nice to be able to toggle visibility and get the original scale back as well. So that might be an extension that we look to. That from the GLTF group. Any comments? Questions?
You covered it pretty well.
Really excited for that meeting. I think it's the start of like a much larger conversation between us and all the other groups within Kronos. Anything else? Any other working groups doing work this week?
I just want to say, if people want a little more background on this, your talk with Neil at the last Meta Traversal is a really great background piece as well. I was just rewatching that last night. I'll go ahead and drop the video to that particular panel in the meeting chat too.
Awesome, thanks. Other things that we got on the agenda, our calendars have been out of whack. Sorry to anyone who got caught up in all this. The calendar itself, like a lot of these events were created in the Pacific time zone because I created a lot of them, or Evo or Jesse, we're all in the US, so our time zone shift with the US time zones. There is an option to create it with the with UTC as the time zone.
They do that shift for us, which is okay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bigger conversation to be had here, which is that we are predominantly North America centric as far as our membership goes. So if we do set UTC as our time zone for these events, and it switches over when only when UTC changes. Does UTC even change? I can't remember.
It's the time not change.
Yeah, so
I mean, this might become moot because there's a good chance the U.S. will vote to get rid of daylight savings this year. I think the Senate already approved it. So.
yeah, well, it still has to go through the House, and Biden has to sign it. So we've got some politics at play in order to address our calendar issues. So I think we do need an overall answer on this because we need to figure out like what is the de facto time zone of OMI, or does there need to be? Is it just each working group kind of decides?
It would make sense that each working group uses their own judgment on their time schedule and they put it on the calendar.
Yeah. So I'm getting 2 questions about using UTC. So again, it's just if our membership will not be able to make these meetings, which I did notice was a thing for the one meeting where we did do it, which was, well, I mean, that one's kind of hard because it's just wait, I guess we didn't do it for the WASM group. Anyways, we could do UTC, but I'm worried that we were going to lose people. Is that we fit into this block of time for people, and I understand that that's unfair for many people, but
And there are reasons why some other groups might meet at different times, or that we might do evening events like the demo nights so that Asian audiences can join us too, because obviously we're not timing ourselves well for most of our colleagues in Asia right now.
So I'm wondering, like, for the general meeting, should we keep the general in UTC and each working group can decide on their own?
Makes sense for now.
I have an opinion that it actually doesn't matter if it's done in UTC or American time zone. The problem is that you have to actually pick a time that's for catering. Say, you pick 2 from Asia and America or Asia and Europe. You have to pick 2. There's 3 options.
Of course. Yeah, consistently it's going to be an issue. So that's why we're trying to spread them out between...
In my experience, so long as the person putting the event into Google Calendar specifies their own time zone when they're putting it in, Google automatically converts it. I mean, it's actually been converting it to UK time for me, including the fact that we're only 7 hours difference at the moment. So the calendar itself takes that into account.
Woohoo!
The only thing that stops that happening is when the entry is being made and it's not clear what time zone it's in.
Okay, so then we just need to make sure that we're consistent about it. It sounds like. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So any content we write should just be UTC. That's the end, right? That's the goal.
And I can make this on our flyer so that we, if we're doing a physical meetup, we use the physical time as well as a UTC time so that it's super clear on anything that's like a flyer or something on Twitter or whatever as well.
Well, that for the local stuff, I think local time zone makes sense. For the individual working groups, I'm saying I think if we put a calendar event on there, it should use the time zone of the calendar event, and that's where this confusion is coming from. It's because we listed multiple working groups under UTC and scheduled as Pacific time, and when Pacific time changed, UTC did not, and that's where the confusion started coming from. So that's really what this issue needs to be resolved as, is if your working group is using a specific time zone in the calendar, that time zone should be listed in the working group README and everywhere else that
right.
It's listed.
On the Git, everywhere. Okay. That's a good note for the Omichan Avatar group, because that group just moved meeting times as well. Thank you for that.
Maybe more reliable way is use the calendars entry rather than the one that's on the text, but I don't know if that's the best way.
Yeah, the calendar should be the source of truth. Like, when in doubt, use the calendar. That's the thing that's going to alert everyone else. As far as comfortable times for these different groups, I would like to do another survey now that we're approaching a year mark. We've done 2 in the past, and we've basically kept the same time the whole time. So I want to redo that here when we're done with our organizational workshop next week. I think we should still put that off for a little bit because we're already dealing with confusion from the workshops. So, yeah. It sounds like there's general consensus on we will ensure that this weekly group meeting is moved to UTC. each individual working group will, which is how it is right now. It is specified in UTC. We just need to make sure that this calendar event moves to be reflected in the UTC time zone so it doesn't switch. And the next bit is each individual working group can pick their time zones for their events. Just make sure that the calendar is in that specific time zone. I don't think anything changed, but I think that's a bigger clarification. And with that, I wanted to bring up next week is the next phase of the leadership and organizational structure workshop. So this next one will be all of these things that we're listing down here. So organizational structure, leadership structure, organizational strategy, taking all of the things that we talked about last week and making them more actionable. We will get you all the material you'll need on next Wednesday. The meeting will start 30 minutes earlier and end 30 minutes later, so it's a 2-hour meeting again. And that's updated on the calendar as well next week. A special organizational meeting. Any questions on that? Any feedback from the last one that we should take into account for this next one?
And if you know of anyone else in the community who had any sort of accessibility challenges, I want to make sure we address those too. So even if you have been talking to someone else who isn't here today, feel free to DM myself or one of the other chairs if there's anything else we need to be bringing into account before we bring this together next Wednesday. As I mentioned in the meeting chat, I will be coming in from Dubai, and I'm hopeful that Wi-Fi will be solid from there, but I will be on a remote situation. So it would be great if there is someone who would like to join the StreamYard account and would be the dedicated streamer recorder for next session. If you're into taking on that role, or potentially being one of the 5 people on our media streaming team, also DM me. That's a call for participation that is ongoing.
Yeah, I'd really like another volunteer there because I'll probably be helping lead the thing, and we could use another computer running the streaming software.
Agreed. I don't want to be. I'm on a laptop in another country, and I have no idea what I'm going to be facing on the other end. So it would be great to have someone who's more stable who can help make sure that that's maintained.
The last bit is the OMI group Eat Up today at 5 p.m. If you're in the Bay Area, or if you're visiting for GDC, we'll hopefully see you tonight at 5 p.m.
Yeah, send your friends or colleagues.
Really,
totally open. It's not just those of us who are insiders here. It's an open gathering, so it's totally fine to just. Hey, my friend said I should come over here. We're going to be in the park. It's overlooking Yerba Buena Park, which is adjacent to the center and everything where GDC happens. So it's a really nice, beautiful day in the park, basically, if you're around or you want to send a friend over.
It's pretty foggy in the sunset right now, so I hope it's clear over there right now.
It's been beautiful in the afternoons. So gorgeous afternoons in the park. We've been hitting it really well this week. So I'm going to buy first pizza, but please feel free to buy your own, or they do have drinks and a full bar there as well, and you can bring a friend if you feel like. And for those of you who want to do this in your own city, we can absolutely do this during other conferences. I'm going to be speaking at AWE, and there's an opportunity to do something even perhaps at the theme park across the street after AWE. We could do something fun during AWE as well. But if you have other events that we should be thinking about doing a physical meetup during, let's have that conversation. And once we are ready to dive into events and engagement strategy, we can try and put those on the calendar.
That's good. Anything else? I think that's it for the agenda. A few of us have a meeting to go to right after this. I'm cool with ending a little bit earlier. David, do you think you got a better overview of the group? Anything else we can clarify for you? Anyone else new here who's needs more info on what we do and where we're going next?
Oh, this has been helpful. Thanks for including me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You can get a sense of how we've begun to break down the many aspects of interoperability into functional small teams and groups that can address each of those elements in different ways. And it's been a journey as a community to find those rhythms and flows together. So we will definitely be doing another demo night, and some of the fantastic development work that some of the folks here have been doing should be spotlighted again soon. So we're going to find another time to do that. It would be great to make sure we include you on that as well.
Great. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thanks.
Will we be able to speak about UX research initiatives in the workshop next week? Absolutely. So in the last bit, I think we talked a little bit about just like working groups in general. Next week, I think we need to next week, I don't think we're like proposing new working groups or anything like that. That can happen at any point. So the UX research working group sort of like call for participation can happen right now if you want. But leadership of working groups, figuring out how to organize and all that sort of stuff, we'll be explicitly figuring out next week. But absolutely bring it onto the board next week. I'm sure there'll be a spot to put that in there and we can discuss. We have 2 hours. It's been like pretty open for us to bring up other topics.
On that UX front, I've had 2 different conversations with other creators who are in this community but don't get to make most of our meetings, who are very interested in exploring that and maybe publishing collective works on the UX of XR and improving not just interoperability outcomes, but sort of human-centered design outcomes across the board. I think there's absolutely momentum to do something, and it doesn't have to be a working group to be effective, but it might be a working group. So if you're sitting with a proposal and you're thinking about like maybe who are my others, put something out to the Discord community to see if we can gather 2 or 3 or 4 people who are sharing that interest, and we'll definitely put them on the board next week and see where we have some alignment around these ideas, especially if there's 4 or 5 people holding onto the same thing. We want to make sure we create space for it, even if it's just a Discord thread, so that we can track it.
I'll just add that the UX of XR is what I'm especially interested in, and the company I work for, Forrester, has no commercial interest in any particular way of doing it. The way we make money is just by trying to give sound advice to companies that are. So I have a very strong interest in understanding best practices, and that includes a lot of what's being discussed.
The person you might want to talk to, David, for follow-up is Juliana Lowe, who was here last week, and she is a established artist who does Tilprish and other immersive works, for example, works at BRCVR and at festivals like Venice. So she comes from a UX background and has been creating metaverse experiences that go now into multiple platforms, and she's been noticing a number of unique challenges that need to be addressed. When I was in residence at Mozilla, there were 2 other women who were engaged in the UX of XR research, but not much has been honestly coalesced. Like you've seen a couple of these guideposts put out there over the last few years, but putting all of that research together in one place in a way that's accessible and easy to find might be a goal for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the book by Cornell Hillman that I read last fall. But of course, yeah, it's still really field in motion.
Correct. And the Creating Realities Hackathon, which is going on this week, which is where some of our friends are on planes and are in transit today to MIT, that is also a really fruitful place in terms of the UX research and figuring out what's going to work in terms of accessibility as well, which is another place where we've had some interest in developing resources, but we don't necessarily have the strength to do so. There are other teams that focus on, for example, XR accessibility. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my colleagues at Forrester, her focus is on inclusive design and digital accessibility.
Correct. So we want to make sure that if we create guideposts, they point to these other resources, even if we are, just a place that helps people get to the next destination in some cases.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks for all of your insights. Are there anyone else who's got a piece you're holding on to or something that you want to make sure we bring into the recording before we stop the recording today?
Again, if you're in the Bay Area tonight, San Francisco at 5 p.m. at Joyride Pizza, here at Buena Park, via OMI meetup there. So,
yeah.
like them.
I want to see your faces in person. Oh, we can absolutely jump on a Hubs room, though. If y'all want to be in Hubs and do Discord together at the same time, I don't care. I'm open to it. I probably will only have an iPad on me, so just to keep that in mind.
You want to make like an instance of Hubs and have it ready before.
Yeah, can you have a portal to the real world meetup?
I would love that. So I can send you pizza through the portal. Now that's a meta traversal I can get behind.
Is there a standard for doing that?
The pizza standard?
Yeah.
Pizza portaling, yeah.
So with the laptop.
Can we get Domino's to pay for this? I mean, if you call it pizza portaling, they'll
you
put
know what?
millions behind
We
it.
might actually be able to get a sponsorship for that. They've done some wild stuff, so we'll see. All right, I gotta head out. It's great
Good
seeing
luck,
you all,
y'all.
and I will talk to you all next week.
Cool. I'm gonna stop the recording.